we had Sarit Zehavi, and when I talk to Sarit, I look at sources of information. I look at what is true out there and what is fake, and I look for places that actually have the real information. We've been talking for a long time how Israel is on two fronts. There's a military war and there's a public opinion war.
Yes.
Sarit is running the public opinion war.
Right.
There's a lot of talk over World War III, but I also see one thing that's really important is when things are easy, people show up who are tough and are resilient. When things are hard, everybody shows up. But when it's easy, you've been here the whole time. You've been here forever. You built this from nothing, going around seeing rooms that were one small room built to another room and another room. And you're becoming really the source of information, but you were ready for years in advance. So thank you so much for coming. Can you give us a couple minutes of your background and then we'll start from there?
Yeah, I'm a lieutenant colonel in reserve. I served for 15 years in the Israel Defense Forces. I was an intelligence officer. Actually, I was an analyst, meaning I didn't gather the information. I just received everything to my computer and I had to write the reports about what's going on. I live up north. I live 9 kilometers from the Israeli-Lebanese border. Since I was assigned to the Northern Command. And that's why I feel that with my everyday life and what I do, I'm practically defending my own family.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly like that. Doesn't matter if it's the information warfare or the kinetic warfare. I was assigned to the Northern Command in 2007, a year after the war. During the war in 2006, I was in the headquarters in Tel Aviv, actually. Dealt a lot with the international pressure in Israel, all the diplomatic efforts around the war back then. So I think this is something that shaped my motivation afterwards to establish a platform that will be part of what you just said about this information warfare, creating kind of a platform of knowledge that will provide accessible knowledge in English about Israel's security challenges on the northern borders, because this is where I live. This is where most of my staff lives. We are here at the Alma Center, which is 12 kilometers from the border. We believe that in order to provide this knowledge, we should be here. We used to go to the border itself every day until this war. Now it's too dangerous. But, just living here and getting to know the people and being part of what is going on, hearing the sounds of war every day, totally shape the way we analyze the information that we get. I established Alma Center in 2018. It started from a small business when I had it in service. Today, as you see, it's an institution, it's an NGO, a non-profit. And I understood that in order to really become a platform of knowledge, it can't be a business. It needs to be an organization that has a strong research department that can bring the information from open sources in Arabic and social media and can analyze all of that. This is something that can't be done in a business because it's not profitable.
And it can't be done. How come it's not being done in the army?
Maybe it is. But the mission of the army is to protect the state of Israel and to bring information, intelligence for the Israeli leaders or for targets or for creating situation assessment. This is not our mission. Our mission at the Alma Center is to combat the delegitimation of the state of Israel by providing reliable information on what's going on.
Yeah,
that's our mission. And that's why we are doing everything in English. We only have a small platform in Hebrew that we established only a year ago. But everything goes out in English. We speak all the time in English. I must tell you that during the current war, and a little bit earlier, we understood that the information that we gather also can be beneficial for Israelis. But it's not the mission. It's not why I get up in the morning. I don't ask myself whether the IDF used this information or doesn't. As an ex-intelligence officer, I know that IDF intelligence also relies on open sources. And so maybe Alma is something that they read. But it's not the question. It's not something. It's not the reason I get up in the morning. The reason I get up in the morning is to meet the journalist and to brief people in English, to tell the untold story about what's going on in the North to the international community.
Do you find that your work has changed a lot since October 7th?
I'm much more busy, first and foremost. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, throughout the day, I'm in touch with reporters. And, it changed a lot because maybe a few things. First, the people that are coming to visit here are no longer delegations. It's much more reporters, with a lot of reporters that are interviewing me from around the globe. A lot of Zoom as well, and interview to TV stations. Even the research changed because we used to do an in-depth research. We published a lot of reports about the UAVs of Iran, the artillery and rockets of Hezbollah, and the civilian platforms of Hezbollah. I'm just giving you examples. The light corridor of smuggling ammunition from Iran to Syria and Lebanon. Today, we can't do that. Today, everything is very rapid. We need to provide very up-to-date information, and yet we are not a news agency. Yeah. So the tension between the research and the fact that you need to do something which is very timely exists all the time, especially during the war. And I think we're trying to create some kind of balance of giving kind of an added value to the information that is reported in news agencies to make people outside of this region understand what we are facing, what is truly going on, and also to give it some kind of reliability when you connect it to the terrain. And this is something that we do all the time. We connect the textual information to how actually it looks like visually on the ground, by the videos, by the testimonies of the people on the ground. Doesn't matter if it's in Lebanon or in Israel, on both sides of the border.
We're talking to both people in Lebanon as well.
We're not talking to people in Lebanon. We can't do that as Israelis. But we are relying on information that we bring from Lebanese media, social.
Do you find that social media is very different in Lebanon? You find that that people in Lebanon are being manipulated by social media that's making them hate Israel more than before? Do you find that's changed?
They are not manipulated by social media. It's not even manipulated. They are indoctrinated by the Hezbollah radical ideology in their everyday life, in everything they do. Because if you go in Muslim Shiite town in South Lebanon, anywhere you look, you see Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the one who provides you education. Hezbollah is the one who provides you medicines. Hezbollah is the one who provides you fuel. Hezbollah is the band. Yeah. Hezbollah is the Boy Scouts. Hezbollah is everything. And that's why you cannot become somebody else but Hezbollah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see a lot of people, not a lot of people, because unfortunately it's very hard. It's people who left these radicalistic ideologies, and they were strong and they were able to leave it, but it's very rare. So we see Mossad Hassan Youssef, who was the son of Hamas, he left. You see other people who left these ideologies, but we look at them and we're so proud to have them, but really you would think that they're not even the majority. They're not even the minority. I wouldn't even call them a minority, but 5 people is not a minority. It's the same thing in America right now. And we just had Jen Cohen, who's a very big influencer, very big podcast. She was saying how there's only really 5 main actors who are speaking up every day for the Jews. Michael Rappaport, Deborah Mack. These are people who are speaking up all the time, but it's not the majority.
I think that in the Middle East, it's even more complicated. In Lebanon, it's even more complicated because eventually there, you're actually risking your life if you speak up.
Same thing with Iranians. Right. So I spoke at Newsmax. It was very interesting. I'm speaking at Newsmax. I spoke on Fox and go into the studio. And I said to them, hey, if I can bring you Iranians that went through the revolution to talk about what's going on, how what's going on now is, or what's going on now versus what happened in the revolution in Iran. Would you be interested in that? And they loved it. They said, of course we'd be interested in that. Get Iranians talking about the stories and comparing these regimes. I couldn't get an Iranian to do it. Why? Because they have family there that got killed. So even Jewish business owners worth $1 billion are saying, I can't go on public news talking negative against Iran because I'm so scared of my family who's there or the community that's there to get killed. So it's a big problem.
What we are trying to do is to expose the truth by social media, because a lot of information comes out of social media. And unfortunately, if you follow that, you don't see enough resistance to Hezbollah from within the Shiite society. You see a lot of resistance to Hezbollah among Christians, among Sunnis, and you see a little bit of resistance among Shiite. But as you've said, it's around 10 or 12 influencers in social media. So eventually, if you look at the villages and the towns of South Lebanon, you see support in what is happening, even though they suffer from the war, no less than we are. Okay, I'm positive in this. But again, the whole way of thinking since the child is born is completely different. And this is something that for us, it's really difficult to understand. I must tell you, when I established Alma Center, I didn't imagine that I would be able to find information around military intelligence in social media. So what I was looking for when I started was exactly these questions about society, about public opinion, about how they think, about how come mothers agreed to put the rockets in their homes. These are the questions that I asked. These are the questions that we started with. And eventually we understood that we will never be able to understand because it is such a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And the indoctrination project is just huge. And it lasted in the past decades. It's not something in the past.
It doesn't change overnight.
No, it doesn't. So you see exceptions here and there. But the exceptions are not enough to create a true change that eventually will bring peace. Okay, that eventually will bring a different approach from Lebanon, from Hezbollah by itself. The whole mission of Hezbollah is to take over Lebanon, to distribute the Islamic Revolution values, and around that also to fight Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, and that's the indoctrination project.
It's a very good thing to say, let's fight Israel, because you can rally people behind your cause. It's for you, it's let's protect the Northerners, and that's what the reason why you get up every single day. They have let's protect our ideology, and Israel is the person. It's a very good scapegoat. It's a really unique motivation every single day. And if you have a big death to Israel flag, or whatever it is, it's really, really
powerful. You see it in the funerals of those who are killed by IDF now, the terrorists who were launching missiles to Israel. Yeah. And in their funerals, the crowd is shouting, death to Israel, death to America.
100%. It's the way to do it. It's how you have to galvanize your base by some way. And this is the way that they're galvanizing their base. What do you see now, asking more technical questions, what do you see now ways for this conflict to not get to a point where there's an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel? And do you think that if Hezbollah and Israel get into a war, will the Lebanese army join that war? What will they do on the side?
Okay, two separate questions. I must tell you that I kind of feel that something deeply changed since October 7th. Okay, and I want to portray the reality for a moment here on place. I'm no longer living in this peaceful, quiet village town that I used to live in. The north of Israel, the past years, became a tourist area, peaceful area, beautiful area. It's still beautiful. But now it is under the stars, the voices of war. Okay, my dog already broke 2 doors since the war started because he's afraid of the explosions that we hear, the blast we hear all the time. Sirens, helicopters, jets, drones, all these noises became part of our day and night, 24/7. Because as I've said, I live 9 kilometers from the border, but within 0 to 5 kilometers from the border, this is constantly bombings. And what Hezbollah started it is very important for me to emphasize. When October 7th happened, Israel had no interest whatsoever to have another front. Okay, we were very focused on fighting Hamas and fighting Gaza. And the next day, on October 8th, Hezbollah opened another front in the north. Nobody talks about it. And the question that I hear in the interviews is, when Hezbollah is going to join in? Hezbollah joined in.
They've been in since day one.
Since day 2. Yeah. Since October 8th.
Because of the fear of another October 7th, which the leaders has been very...
I took my children, the people who were evacuated live 0 to 4 or 5 kilometers from me. I don't live in this area. I live 9 kilometers. I took my kids away. Yeah. I couldn't sleep because I was worried that any second Hezbollah Radwan Brigades, that's the name of the elite units of Hezbollah, will invade just like Hamas had done, because I knew they have the same plan, and I knew they were completely prepared to do that because I saw them everywhere, and every day on the wall.
You're actually seeing it.
I saw them. I took photos of them.
Do you find there's a lot of talk now, just exactly what you're saying? It just sparks a question in my head. Hamas constantly says we're going to have another October 7th, another October 7th. Are they talking? They're not talking to their cousins. They're talking to their Hezbollah friends. Is that who they're trying to galvanize? Is that who they're trying to rally?
I think Hezbollah and Hamas have different interests. Okay? And again, there are different versions to your question. There are different answers to your question with regard to an evaluation. because some experts are saying that Hezbollah was surprised. And actually, the plan was to start with Hezbollah. Hezbollah was surprised not because it wanted peace. Hezbollah was surprised because it wanted to start. Hezbollah is the senior, most professional proxy of Iran in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay, it has kind of prestige. It will never go and be secondary to Hamas. This is not going to happen. Hezbollah wants its own campaign for its own reasons, to build its own image as the protector of Lebanon. Okay, and that's why Hezbollah opened another front against Israel, but didn't invade the same way Hamas have done after Hamas was the one who started it. Now, Hezbollah maybe was surprised. This is one option. The other option that it's all coordinated. Actually, the Iranians and Hezbollah decided to sacrifice Hamas, that Hamas will start, that all the military efforts of Israel will be towards Hamas. And meanwhile, Hezbollah is learning the lessons, learning the tactics, learning the impact, learning the responses of international community, learning how the IDF responses. Eventually, they will execute their plan to invade Israel as well. And this is why I've said that October 7th changed us Israelis. Because we knew that Hezbollah is preparing. We knew that Hezbollah, I'm talking about civilians, I'm not even talking about the army. We knew that Hezbollah is right on the border because we saw them. And we were willing to live like that. But now, after we saw the atrocities of Hamas, we're not willing to live like that anymore. And that's the answer to your question about war. Because now we are saying to the whole world, we're not going to be sacrificed. And we are not willing to become victims of a massacre. And we are not willing to be slaughtered.
And even if you become a victim, it doesn't make any difference because you're still being looked at as the attacker and the aggressor. Doesn't make a difference. So you might as well be regardless, the public opinion is going to turn on us. Regardless, doesn't make a difference. So we might as well be alive. Golda Meir had a great line. She said, I don't remember exactly the line, but she said, I'd rather be hated and alive than dead and victimized. It's what it is. Unfortunately, that's what we're battling.
I think that what is the toughest thing in my mission is to bring people to understand what is existential. Is to bring people to understand what it's like that 60,000 people evacuated from their homes in the past 3 years, and they don't know when they will be able to go back. And everything stays like this. Everything, everything is the way they just left it. And they are living in hotels. It sounds like a vacation, which is not a vacation. It's 3 months with family in one room. This is not a vacation. It creates a lot of problems. Children in my hometown, my kids didn't go to school for 2 months. And eventually they renewed school, but with a lot of fears of where exactly this is heading, what exactly is going to happen. And we are kind of living now in a feeling of waiting. Every morning I get up and I say, okay, the war didn't start today. Every morning.
So what needs to happen that the war does not start? Not what
I understand.
What will Israel and the world, and one thing, I saw one of the generals spoke, and he said one of the genius things, the reason why Hezbollah came in, and I'm curious if you said, because you would know probably more than him, what the genius thing that happened was Hezbollah was surprised that Biden sent a warship. And once they saw that, they went, okay, maybe we don't go in right now. Number one, is that true? Number two, going back to my other question, what do you think Israel has to do to not make this an escalation of the war?
The only issue with the carrier, with U.S. carrier, is analyzed through the Western eyes.
Of course.
And Western eyes analyze the reality in a sense of cherishing. So Hezbollah knows that if you will get involved, it will be a lot of suffering, maybe it will be destroyed, the Iranians may be involved, and everybody thinks that this is deterrence, this is effective deterrence. And I see this a little bit differently. I think that we are facing an enemy. Doesn't matter whether it's Hezbollah or Iran, okay? It's both of them on my border because Hezbollah is a proxy. and they cherish them. So the only way to deter them is to actually damage their capabilities, not threatening their lives, because they cherish death.
So,
and every military operative of Hezbollah that was killed since this war started is another reason to revenge. It's not another reason to be deterred. And it's the same with the U.S. carrier. The U.S. carrier mission eventually, or I would say mission advantage, is to encourage the Israelis. This is extremely important. Okay, don't understand it. This is really important because we were broken. And to see the U.S. carrier coming was extremely important for us. It was very stressing for us. And second, to be prepared. It's not about deterrence. It's to be prepared that if necessary, it will get involved. Now, as long as there was no necessity and it was not involved, it doesn't create true deterrence. The Iranians
no, of course not. It just shows it's all, everything is image.
And if those who claim that it created deterrence cannot explain the involvement of the Houthis, cannot explain the involvement of Iran itself in a few incidents since this war started, cannot explain the involvement of the proxies of Iran in Syria and Iraq, and even not Hezbollah. Because again, those who are saying that the U.S. carrier created deterrence should tell that to the 60,000 Israelis that were evacuated, because they cannot go back to their homes. So actually, the situation that was created here up north was a huge advantage for Hezbollah. It's an achievement. He got to the Upper Galilee evacuated, basically. No life in the Upper Galilee in Israel. This is a huge achievement. This could last forever in Nasrallah's point of view, the Hezbollah point of view. Why would we go to war now if we already got an achievement here and, we stretched the IDF forces north and south. We got an achievement with the Upper Galilee. I'm not sure they expected it to be evacuated, all these people. And okay, the situation is created now. All Hezbollah has to do is to continue. But, as you said, for the state of Israel, there will be some point. The decision will have to be made because we need to bring the people back to their homes. Okay?
Yeah, but people need to be safe.
People need to be safe. It is clear that we are not going to just give up areas of the state of Israel, legitimate areas of the state of Israel. This is unheard of. Okay? And that's why at some point there either be an extensive attack. Okay, I'll put it this way. I'm not even saying war because we don't know. Or there will be an agreement. The problem with an agreement is that Hezbollah has no intention to actually keep this agreement. No intention. We shouldn't illusion ourselves. And the only way this kind of agreement will become effective if there will be an international force that will actually enforce it and will go home to home, will be capable of entering the homes of the Lebanese in South Lebanon to make sure that there are no tunnels, and if they are, they were blocked, and all the rockets were evacuated from these homes. Because the same sites that you see in Gaza,
The same sites up there.
the same.
Same weapon. It's the exact same weapons.
Yes, just much more.
Where is Lebanon? What is Lebanon doing? They're creating anarchy amongst their own country. There's this terrorist organization in their own country. Where's Lebanon? And so I get the solution. That's great.
It's not a solution. There is no solution.
The solution was
Just,
to deradicalize the zone and eliminate Hezbollah and change around the education.
Yes, but when you define it as a solution, our listeners may believe that, okay, it's a solution. It's not like that.
But
It's not like that. It's going to last years.
Years is fine, but it's still a solution. It could be 10, it could be 20 years. It's still, there has to be a way that Israel can secure itself. And it has to be a way that there will be a final peace process. Abraham Accords, for example, was an incredible achievement. That created, in my mind, a lot of peace. Saudi Arabia normalizing ties and saying that Israel is allowed to exist.
Amazing.
And how they eliminated the Muslim Brotherhood, how they just wiped them out. They recreated the education system to not allow them to indoctrinate their kids. The problem is, there is no force that's more powerful. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but there is no force that's more powerful than Hezbollah. What does Lebanon need to do? What does the world need to do to fix this so Israel can be secure, not for 5 or 10 years? Israel saying, But there has to be something that changes over there. What can change? Or maybe Lebanon likes them. I don't know.
You said it yourself. As long as the ideology is still alive and the education is according to this kind of ideology, there is no solution.
But who is the
You're not
person
going to solutionize.
but that's the solution. But who's responsible for doing that?
Okay, so there is no state of Lebanon. I think it's time to say it very, very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
There is no state of Lebanon. There are different players in an area named Lebanon. That's it. It's different players with different interests. The strongest one is Hezbollah, but he's not the only one. Okay? There are the Christians of Lebanon, there are the Sunnis of Lebanon, there are the Druze of Lebanon. All of them are not as strong as Hezbollah. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are opponents to Hezbollah. They see what Hezbollah is doing to their country, but they cannot stop him. There is no state. And if you look at the interim prime minister of Lebanon, after Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, declared that he is not going to a ceasefire as long as there is a war in Gaza, the prime minister of Lebanon just repeated that.
Yeah.
So that's a very good example. Okay? It doesn't matter what the Lebanese people believe in. Eventually, what is the Lebanese people? Lebanese people is composed of Muslim Shiites that are supporting Hezbollah, of Christians that part of them are against Hezbollah and part of them are for Hezbollah, of Druze that the leaders, it depends because their mission is to defend a very small sect named the Druze. So they are going with the strongest guy in the neighborhood. And of Sunnis that are very much divided to different opinions and different views and different families. And all the leaders from all sects are very corrupted.
Of course.
Everybody. So that's Lebanon. It's not the state.
My friend, the Yahweh Cheska, always says if there's food on the table, take the biggest bite you can. But these guys are taking a lot of bites because they just see money. Why not take it? Why not take it? Why not take power? Why not take money?
And they are doing that for decades.
They love it.
Okay. And that's why the international community at some point in time said enough. We're not going to help anymore. But at the same time, Hezbollah continued to take. The others continue to take. Lebanon has collapsed. And as for the Lebanese army, you asked me about the Lebanese army. Lebanese army will join Hezbollah if there will be an all-out war, put it this way, a high-scale war, post-war is happening now, between Israel and Lebanon, because Lebanese army needs to build its image as the protector of Lebanon. Moreover, even though there is a competition between the Lebanese army and Hezbollah, and that's the uniqueness of the Middle East. You can have a competition with somebody, and at the same time, you can work with him.
Yeah.
You can partner with him.
Well, that's what it's a funny thing. Sorry to interrupt you. It's a funny thing. That's what Israel thought with Hamas. Israel thought, oh, they say they want to kill us, but if they want to murder us, they're definitely crazy. They're definitely all this, but we can work with them. And then October 7th happened. All of a sudden, they can't work with them anymore. They realize, oh, this is actually a death blow.
And again, that's why this is what changed among Israelis. That Israelis in the north here are saying, we've seen what happened to our brothers and sisters in the south. We understand there is no deterrence to people who cherish death. The intentions exist, and we will never know when they will decide to execute them. We're just not going to know. And over here, I want to say something about alert. Because all over the world, I hear these questions. How come you didn't know? Okay? And I want to ask you a question, because Americans can understand that. If somebody is standing just, in front of you, and he's holding a gun, and his finger is on the trigger, will you be able to know when he's going to pull the trigger?
It's possible.
This is the situation here. This was the situation with Hamas, and this was the situation with Hezbollah. The problem is that we got used to the fact that somebody is pointing a gun at us, putting his finger on the trigger, and not pressing it. But we are not going to know.
Do you think that there will be a large-scale war?
Look, it's in English you say, be careful what you wish for. A large-scale war means a lot of damage, means a catastrophe, means thousands of missiles that will be launched to Israel every day, thousands every day. Iron Dome is not going to send all of this, okay? Means if there will be a decision also to have a ground invasion, which I'm not sure this will happen, but if it will happen, it's going to be much more challenging for the soldiers on the ground than in Gaza. The terrain is different. There's lots of hills and valleys to maneuver in Lebanon. It's much more difficult than to maneuver in Gaza.
Also, Lebanon's much bigger. You have a lot
much
of
bigger.
You can't go house to house like it.
And you talk about international community. international community completely doesn't understand the challenge that we are facing from Lebanon.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to be much more challenging if there will be a full-scale war. And I think our leaders are trying to avoid that as much as possible. But on the other hand, again, Israelis here are saying, we are not going to compromise on the capabilities to kill us.
Yeah, what's the difference? You move 10 miles south, they're going to shoot rockets 10 miles further, but there's no difference.
I want to talk about this 10 miles south, or 10 miles north, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, they're talking about international arrangement that will push Hezbollah 10 miles, 10 kilometers, 20
It's all
kilometers.
nonsense. What's the difference?
Let's talk about that. What does that mean if the Hezbollah military operatives actually live in down south?
Yeah.
What does that mean if the munition is hidden inside the homes? It has no meaning. This sentence has no meaning. The framing that we should use is disarming Hezbollah in the areas next to the border.
But who can do that?
This is an open question. You know, I used to ask all the time, who can do that? There is nobody who can do that. And then came a reporter here, and she said, Sarit, international community had done that with ISIS. You can bring a coalition of United States and Great Britain, and they would do that. I said, you know what? If those who did that with ISIS will come to South Lebanon, I'm happy. Let's see. But I don't see this happening.
How many wars they're going to fight?
I don't see this happening.
It's a ripple effect, and one thing on an interesting side is that you see Israel on the side of, there's really two resilient factions here. There's the Israel resilience of saying, okay, how much are we going to take, and how are we going to keep, because we're not going anywhere, we're going to keep fighting, we're going to keep building, we're going to keep growing, we're going to live life because we cherish life, and that's the way that we live. And then you have the resilience of Hezbollah saying we cherish death. When you talk about somebody and say, okay, if you die, you're going to get 52 virgins or whatever it is. And the question is also, what happens if you sleep with all the virgins? Are you just unhappy? That's just my thought process. Is your life just over?
Yeah, but you're looking for something, again, a logic that doesn't exist.
You're chasing death.
Yeah.
But there's resilience on that. What will be more resilient? Life is more resilient. Because the desire to live is more resilient than the desire for death. Death is a very short-term solution. Life is a very long-term solution. Life is much more challenging over the long term, but it's sustainable. Death is only a short-term option. So I do think that I'm always going to be biased pro-Israel. I'm always going to be biased to humans. I do think the Israelis are going to actually take this and win. It's a very hard, because what you're saying is very interesting. You're saying how it's a lot more complicated because there's an enemy, but there's a lot of enemies. It's very powerful, but there's also, you can't just go into Hezbollah and say, oh, Lebanon, hey, stand on the side. Let me take care of Lebanon. Let me take care of Hezbollah. And then I'm going to go back to my home. They need to then take power. And they're not big enough. They're not doing enough damage to the international community for people to say, okay, well, we need to go take out Hezbollah like we took out ISIS.
I think they're doing a lot of damage, but the international community ignores them.
Of course, because I find that
blocking the straits down there in the Red Sea, this is unheard of.
Unheard of. The Houthis, I find, are sissies.
Now, who trained the Houthis? Hezbollah trained the Houthis.
Of course.
We published that. We brought a video that you see a Hezbollah military commander in Yemen training the Houthis in 2016.
There's a lot of talks of different small factions that are growing. Who is the funder? Who's supplying them? Do you think that's a bigger problem? Because we're speaking about the Houthis.
Look, as far as we know, the funder is Iran. Now here's the follow-up question that I'm usually being asked, but Iran is under sanctions. So my doctor used to say...
The Iranian sanctions are not. They're producing, 2 million barrels a day? How many sanctions are there? There were sanctions, but they're not enforced.
No, okay, that's so my doctor used to say there is no medicine. If you don't take it, it's non-effective.
Of course.
Okay. If you sanction a country and it continues to market and it continues to trade with Russia, with China, with North Korea, with Venezuela, with Syria, and with Yemen, so the sanctions, okay, so they can't trade with the United States. Okay, what's the big deal?
If you toughen the sanctions, which they did, and then they released, and Jared Kushner had a great podcast with Lex Friedman talking about that. One of my favorite podcasts, if you take sanctions and actually enforce them, it's great. If you take this and enforce them, it's great. It's a it's a very hard challenge to actually do something like that. It's not easy.
So that's one way to be financed, to get the money from Iran. But there is another way, because Hezbollah eventually is working as a mafia. Okay, it's a crime organization. Yeah. It's not only a terrorist organization. And there is a tight connection between crime and terror. So if you look at Hezbollah crime industry, which is drugs, prostitute, and smuggling, and you see this happening in South America, you see this even in America, it's in the United States, and you see this happening in Africa, and you see this happening even in Asia in some areas. And so that's where you understand. So that's another income that Hezbollah is based upon and was greatly developed in the past decade or 15 years. More than that, we discussed the Lebanese diaspora. Among the Lebanese diaspora, there are many people who were against Hezbollah and actually ran away from Lebanon. Okay, and now living in diaspora. But there are others who support Hezbollah.
Of course.
Okay. And those who support Hezbollah are sending money to Hezbollah.
Of course.
And eventually Hezbollah is not based only on the Iranian money that comes from there. It's based on also other sources of income.
You only need in every community, you only need one big backer. That's really what you need. Every synagogue, every charity, Alma, doesn't make a difference. You need one. You need one anchor. For that, they need a bigger anchor, but there are bigger anchors for organizations like that. They're running a nonprofit that happens to be getting funded from different places, and you get a tax deduction for it through your, I don't know where you get the tax deduction for it. But it's a big problem. It's a big issue. But if you see what's going on with just on one side, it's going on with social media. Happened a couple of weeks ago, Al-Qaeda was looked at, like Osama bin Laden was looked at like an amazing person, and it went across TikTok, which we say no. And we say this is ridiculous, but that doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore.
The truth doesn't matter.
Who cares? It's not, truth doesn't sway public opinion. Information sways public opinion. It doesn't need to be right information or wrong information. Information does. I remember watching this YouTube story, and it's like, sounds like Morgan Freeman is talking about it. And it was like a lie for like an hour. It was just lying about all these different presidents, and he did this, and he did that. It was like the best speaker I've ever seen. I saw this like when I was like in high school or elementary school, and you're watching this, you're like, wow, this is amazing. And then you realize, and then they go, yeah, everything here is false. Like the whole video, we just made this whole video just to prove a point. And it's incredible, but they're doing it on a global scale. I see the solution, and I'm not a military person. I was in the military, but I'm not a military person. I see the solution of a change and rewiring of an entire culture. And I feel that if the people who understand life keep falling, and the death cults that were the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, is an easy death cult because they control Hamas, they control all SJP and all these other organizations. If they fall, then it'll be one after another. And I think Hezbollah will fall too.
But it's not on the same track.
It's not on the same track, but
the problem is that
the ideology.
What was created in the Middle East is two tracks that are working. Sometimes they collaborate, but actually there are two different tracks. One is the Muslim Brotherhood, and the other one is Iran. Muslim Brotherhood today works with Turkey, works with Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay, and Iran it's Shiite. Muslim Brotherhood is Muslim Sunni. Yeah. Iran is Muslim Shiite. It's two different ideologies that can sometimes partner, can sometimes collaborate. You see Hamas collaborate with Iran. You see Hamas collaborate with Iran in Lebanon, for example. You see Islamic Jihad, which is a Muslim organization, completely supported by Iran, though it is getting its ideology from the Muslim Brotherhood. It's funny. In other areas of the Middle East,
enemy of my enemies, my friend.
Not necessarily. Here, it's even much more complicated. And that's why I'm saying in the Middle East, you can have a situation that two ideologies or two organizations or two movements will be competitive to each other, but at the same time, they can collaborate.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we see when we speak about the radical Sunni interpretation of Islam and the Shiite radical interpretation of Islam. Both today are collaborating in various places of this campaign against the state of Israel and against the West. I totally agree. But it's not necessarily the same head. Okay? What you were describing now in the United States and what is happening, for example, in the campuses, the address is much more in Qatar than in Iran.
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
Which is the Sunni,
Muslim Brotherhood.
which is Muslim Brotherhood.
They're convicted Hamas.
But in some areas, they do collaborate. And this is something that we must understand. If you want to understand the Middle East and you want to find a solution, which again, I don't like this word, but okay.
You want to find a way to have long-term security.
If you want to stop that, and we both agree that there is a strong motivation of ideology over here, you need to understand that reality is portrayed in a lot of gray, or 50 shades of gray, okay? And not black and white. Because if you just divide the world to two parts, oppressors and oppressed, black and white, and colonialists and colonizers, and again, locals, and it doesn't work this way. The world is divided to many different groups with many different ideologies, with different types of histories and different types of interests, point of views, that we cannot analyze the world only by this, what we see today, bad guys and good guys. This is something much more complex than that. And if the earlier that we will succeed in understanding that it's much more complex with them, I think we will be able to fight this. And I want to talk about
who's the we? Who's the we?
We is the West, who's those who believe in freedom, in democracy, in human rights. I think Israel shares all these values with the West. The people that are living in Israel believe in all these values. And if you look at the Israeli army, I'm a woman, okay? I grew up in the Israeli army. I saw the evolution of the Israeli army with regard to women serving in special units, serving in combat units. The situation today is different than it used to be 20, 25 years ago. If I look at the state of Israel attitude towards LGBTQ, this attitude is unique to the Middle East. If you go anywhere else in the Middle East, you are gay, you're going to get killed. If you're going to Gaza and you're gay, you're going to get killed. You're not going to get out alive of Gaza. Gays in West Bank are finding shelter in Israel. Or Palestinian gays in West Bank finding shelter in Israel. This is something, I had a group once.
2 million Arabs and Arab Israelis.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
I must tell you a story. I used to take the groups to the borders, right? Lebanese border and Syrian border. We used to stay on the Syrian border one day. I took a group from United States of LGBTQ, and we were looking at Syria. And I told them, Damascus is only like 40 miles away from us. And last weekend there was a party in Damascus. And after like 2 hours, the Syrian police came to the party and arrested those who arranged the party and stopped the party. And those who were arrested, nobody knows what happened to them. Do you know why they did that? And all the answers I got is because of the civil war in Syria, because these people were not loyal to the government, because whatever. There were suspects of crime. No. The reason that the people who arranged the party were arrested is because this party was for a specific population of LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And this happens 40 miles on the border with Israel, while in Israel, these parties are safe and everybody can be part of it and celebrate. So I think that it's, for us, democracy is genuine. It's natural. We don't see, and the campaign that you saw that is going on in Israel just before.
It's still democracy.
It's all about
freedom of democracy.
Freedom of democracy. And I must tell you, those who supported the legal reform truly believed that the legal reform will strengthen the democracy.
Of course. It's a fight of democracy.
It was not
it's how you perceive democracy. That was
exactly. And by the way, these questions are the same in the United States. We know them. So democracy doesn't have one face. There are different ways to practice democracy. There is a debate, strong debate inside Israel of how our democracy should look like. But there is no debate whether we should be a democracy. It is clear to all of us. Doesn't matter who we are, from what kind of background, religion, economic situation, supporting and against the legislation. Doesn't matter. All of us agree that Israel should be a democracy.
100%. And that's a much better way to live. We grew up very financially unstable. And because of capitalism And we went through serious financial troubles because of capitalism. We were able to build and we were able to grow past our station. I recreated myself as a new person. I want to say one thing at the Nova Festival, which was I found very interesting. The Nova Festival is a global festival. They go around the world. That's why there were so many foreigners that were at the Nova Festival. But at the Nova Festival, which I thought was the most interesting, is that why were there so many women? There was a record amount of women, or a record, I don't know, everybody has a record of something, but a record amount of women that showed up at this Nova Festival. Why? Because Israel is known for having safe parties for women.
It's not obvious?
Known around the world, meaning the Nova Festival culture that has parties everywhere. At the Nova Festival in Israel, there were more women because Israel is known for that safety.
I think that's in Israeli, it's not even a question.
It's not even a question. Where we grew up, there was when we grew up, I remember a friend of mine, I put her drink down and she got mad at me for like an hour. And I said, why? She goes, because guys will slip me drinks. They'll slip me they'll slip me roofies. They'll slip something in my drink. It's a huge difference when you're talking about this freedom and having the trust that you can live free is a huge difference. And that's why I find a lot of these countries are coming in. That's why a lot of people, the free West, which I find a solid majority, but I think they're starting to get louder because they're starting to get impatient with what's going on, is actually talking about right now saying, hey, we don't like what's going on. We support Israel. The amount of messages that I get, thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm thinking, I'm doing nothing. There's so many people you're doing so much more than me. But it's really amazing how many people are really behind you. And I've been talking, and the big reason why I came to Israel is because I've been talking to people and saying, I asked the simple one question. How many Americans do you think are against Israel right now?
You know,
what would you think? What would you say?
That we had the same conversation in my family yesterday.
People think,
and my little girl asked the same question. Is United States is with us? And my son, who is 17 years old, I sent her, yes, but not the young generation. This is what he answered. I
actually disagree with it. I think the people who do polls, number one, who has this much time to protest? I don't have that much time to protest. This is heavy on me to take time off. But I find that, number one, America's 100% with them because almost 90% of the politicians are just voices for their base. If their base that do not support Israel, they would not support Israel because they'd be voted out and they'd be scared to lose their job. So you have to follow the politicians. I don't follow the journalists. I follow the politicians and what they're doing. That's one side. And on the second side, the young people who are doing these polls, they want to change public opinion. So they're posting on social media, doing all this stuff. I personally don't think there's more than 250,000 people that hate Israel in the States. I personally don't think that there's true people that protest. I don't think there's more than 250,000. But look at Notoria Carta, the religious sect of the soccer community that are black sheets even to the own soccer community. How many families are there? 200 families.
Yeah.
And they show up. You look at the Westboro Baptist Church, which is the most radical sect of the church by far. They're looked at as like a horrible organization. They sue everybody. They go and protest all the time. How many families? 60. But they have huge recognition. I don't think that if there was 10 million people that hated Israel, there'd be a lot of politicians that would not be supporting Israel.
And it's not the case.
Where are the politicians right now? Fetterman in Pennsylvania, who everybody would think was the most anti-Israel, has been the most pro-Israel. The guy with the shorts and the big baggy the baggy sweatshirt that looks ridiculous, but he's pro-Israel, so everybody likes him right now. Richie Torres, who's a congressman from New York. He has the Bronx. He has the project. That's his big base, but he's pro-Israel, the most pro-Israel.
Yes.
So if you look at, so you take the liberals, so obviously the right cities are going to be pro-Israel. That's just Bible Belt, religion, fine. But then you take the liberal cities, New York City, where I live, who are the politicians? Hillary Clinton, super pro-Israel. Super left.
Eventually.
I disagree with you.
Our way of life is all about liberal.
And that's it. It's all
that's what freedom. We share.
So if you took your one value, what would that be? What would that one value be? You have one value to choose in the deck of freedom for you. That's what you're doing right now. You're fighting for freedom.
We're fighting for freedom.
Where did that come from? There's a defining moment in your life that you said, hey, I'm gonna be something more than I wasn't, because it's an amazing thing. You've obviously overcome a lot of obstacles. Can you tell us how you've overcome the obstacles in that moment in your life that you've actually done that?
This is since I was 16.
What happened at 16?
Like, many things happened when I was 16. It was the Oslo Accords. Rabin was assassinated. I was in the army. I was a cadet. I was already 19. But the whole process, the whole peace process, I didn't believe in this peace process, to tell the truth. And the old disagreement inside Israel around the Oslo Accords was the question whether it is going truly to bring peace or not. This was the question. And among my friends in high school, I was the only one who didn't believe it. And I decided I want to go and study Middle Eastern studies because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right. Maybe there will be peace. Maybe I'm wrong. And I wanted to go and study and try to understand how come our neighboring countries don't want Israel to exist? How come we are facing such radical ideology? How come there is no democracy in the Middle East? I asked all these questions since I was 16. I was trying to understand. And then I went to study Middle Eastern studies. And during my MA, I was recruited back to the army and joining intelligence. Okay, because my compulsory service, I was not an intelligence officer at all. I dealt with manpower, something of the sort. And so then I went back to intelligence and kind of saw contradicting point of views to the Middle East. You know, in academy, in the military, it's very, very different. It's kind of the two sides of the spectrum of this approach to the Middle East. Okay, in the academy, it was very progressive and liberal approach, blaming mainly the postmodernism, colonialism, Orientalism, if you heard about this term. In the army, you know, eventually it's an enemy, and you need to win against the enemy. That's the approach. It's very simple.
Black and white.
Black and white. And when I left the army after 14 years, and I remember when I studied in academy, I felt that none of this approach I can agree with. I need something else. I want to think about something else. And I think that establishing Alma Center was trying to provide kind of a different approach. We are using the methodologies that we study in intelligence, and we are using, you know, combining terrain analysis with textual analysis. But eventually the fact that we are based in the Galilee, which most of the population in the Galilee is not Jewish, and we live with Arabs, and we live, and you saw my staff, yes, you have all the different sects working here, and it just reflects the daily life here. And that's how I educate my kids, that we are living in a diverse society and they should accept everybody. It's not, you know, we shouldn't hate anybody. And I think that eventually I kind of find a way to understand and even to explain to somebody else what kind of situation we are facing here. How come there is no democracy, if you like, okay, in the neighboring countries? What processes these societies went through in the past century or so? And to combine that with the military information and the military approach, and try to melt all of that to a different point of view. And I think we are bringing kind of a different point of view, because it's not only from the security approach, and it's not only from the academic. No,
you're showing from a democracy approach to freedom. It's to freedom.
And I think this was, so if you ask me when it started at the age of 16. But even when I left the army, I felt that I want to continue to do something good for the state of Israel, because I truly believe in the existence of the state of Israel. I truly believe, if you talk about solutions, I truly believe there is no solution for the Jewish people, except for having the state of Israel. The state of, even though 1,200 people were just killed, and I'm totally aware of it, my heart is broken, completely broken from what happened. I can't find the words to explain how broken I feel. But at the same time, I truly believe that if the state of Israel wouldn't exist, it was not 1,200 people, it was 6 million.
It was way more. I think maybe more. I say to my wife all the time, and it's so amazing what you're saying. And you're talking about how you didn't trust the traditional peace process because they didn't really understand what was going on, but you understood it, even at a young age.
I'm not sure I understood it.
But you understood it again.
Again, you know, it was two opinions, and I turned to be right eventually, and I wish I were wrong, okay? I think that everybody in Israel, including those who were against the Oslo Accords, And I'm not taking the extremist, okay? I'm not talking about Igalami who murdered our prime minister. This is, of course, out of the discussion. But the majority of the Israelis, doesn't matter if they were for the Oslo Accords or against the Oslo Accords, eventually all of us truly hoped that we were wrong. And I'm saying the same thing, by the way, with Hezbollah. I hope that I'm wrong. Each time I'm giving this actually kind of almost apocalyptic analysis, because again, I see Hezbollah as part of a much bigger campaign that we are facing here. And I said that from October 7th, 9:30 in the morning. When I saw what is happening, I immediately released the video to all the reporters and all my friends that I'm in touch with. And I said, the grand campaign of Iran had started. This is what I believe in. I think that Iran planned this multi-front campaign against Israel, against Western values as well. And it started. It didn't start in the way we thought it would start. It didn't start in the place we thought it would start. And what we didn't understand is that Iran created different players here, militias, okay, if you want to call them militias. They're not only militias, but let's call them militias for a moment, proxy militias, that it's not a chain of command, actually. Each of them has different interests, different nature, different, even a little bit like different ideologies here and there. And eventually Iran gave them the ideology, gave them the tool, gave them the training, and told them, okay, you know what? Now we have a huge risk, which is the normalization process that you described between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Let's go to this campaign. And each of these proxies actually had the freedom to choose what kind of campaign they want to handle. And that's why it was that difficult to predict.
So interesting, because you don't have one. What you're saying is you don't have one head, you have a lot of heads, and you're giving them freedom to choose the same thing. They're giving them liberty to choose how they want to live their life. And Iran is just enabling that.
Not how they want to live their life, because they were indoctrinated to the same idea. How they want to carry out the campaign.
Correct.
Okay, the military campaign.
Correct. You two, what you feel is best, we're going to help support you.
What they all share eventually is they all cherish the culture of death.
Of course. It's pro-life, pro-death.
And they all
pro-humanity.
say very clearly, death to Israel, death to America.
Yeah.
All of them. You see this in the funerals of South Lebanon, and you see this in the millions of demonstrations in Yemen.
Yeah. It's an incredible, it's incredible to see this. And it's incredible that what you're doing is you're changing the world. I mean, right now, this is the focal point, because this is the escalation of the war. Gaza can be contained because it's not going anywhere. Egypt doesn't even want that. If Egypt wanted to do something,
actually, I must tell you that with all the suffering, including of the Gazians, I can't ignore that.
Of course.
With all the suffering, I truly believe that if there will be one player in the world, doesn't matter who, that is interested in making Gaza become like Dubai and build the schools, we have an opportunity.
There is, I forgot the name. I did a podcast with Harel Horeb, which you should meet. He's on every media station. He was mentioning, I forgot the name of one person that is unbelievably successful, unbelievably powerful, non-corruptible. He's not perfect, as no politician is, but he could be the person to come and run Gaza.
Okay. Whoever it is that eventually wants to build their a project that will be symbolized peace, that we can work together. Because when we evacuated Gaza in 2005, we didn't want to control there anymore. We had no interest. We took the dead from the graves. We took everything out. What we left were the pipes of sewage, were the pipes of irrigation, the greenhouses. We left the infrastructure for the Gazians to have a good life, better life, and eventually they voted for Hamas. So now, since Gaza was destroyed, or mostly destroyed, there is an opportunity. In Lebanon, it's different. In Lebanon, it's the opposite. We have no opportunity in Lebanon because we are not there. Hezbollah is there. This is Hezbollah's land.
Yeah, it's Hezbollah's land, and it's a very different type of battle. It's very eye-opening. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and how they can get in contact with you?
So yes, Alma Center, we have the website, which is israel-alma.org. From there, you can get to all the social media platforms we have everywhere. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. And we publish tons of information of what's going on, with a lot of visual information, which will enable you to understand better what is this campaign that we are facing now.
And who should people be supporting? I mean, the Northerners, I'm a Northerner. I lived up here in the Golan this was my home. This was the first time I ever came to Israel. I stopped off in Jerusalem with my Mafina for an hour and we went straight up to the Golan. I was in the Golan for 2.5 weeks. So I feel always when people ask me where I'm from, if I'm from Israel, which I'm not, but where I'm from in Israel, I say my heart's in the north. I got engaged to my wife in Abnei Town, which is also one of the people that work here from Abnei Town, so I probably know him. But I'm a Northerner. So what do people do for the Northerners? What do we need for that?
First and foremost, share the knowledge. I think that the biggest problem for us in the north is that people are still waiting for Hezbollah to start the war. And people don't understand that Hezbollah started the war 3 months ago. And the fact that you just see in the video behind you, houses that are destroyed by the Hezbollah missiles. And this is happening every day as we speak. Nobody knows about it. And when eventually, if and when this war will start, people don't understand what happened. Why this war eventually started. And I need, and we in Israel need the international community to understand that we are here 12 kilometers, not from Lebanon. As I've told you, there is no Lebanon. We are here 12 kilometers from Iran because Hezbollah represent Iranian Ayatollah's ideology. The children of Hezbollah in their schools, by the way, are cheering for the supreme leader of Iran. In the funerals, they have the posters of the supreme leaders of Iran. This is what we are facing here. And if we will not find a way to stop that and to win against that, it's going to get everywhere in the world. It's not going to be just Israel's problem.
My call to action would be for the international community to understand that it doesn't need a war. I don't want a war. I don't want destruction, but to understand what they're actually dealing with and enable, like they did with ISIS, change around the culture, change around, understand it if you can, and engage with partners to not just address peace with Israel, great, but you're not going to get peace with Israel with Lebanon. How do we change around the culture with Lebanon? In Lebanon.
And if you work with the weakest players in Lebanon, you're not going to.
No, you have to, that's the problem that's a whole other podcast, but it's conversation of how do you actually engage? How do you choose the right backing? Who do you know to back? That's the real problem. I find that the sanctions and the political opinion right now of the U.S. and around the world is that they know Iran is behind it because that's all they say. Nobody even says, I find it really funny. It's like, who are the Houthis? Nobody even says the Houthis. There is no such thing as the Houthis. And it's the same thing with COVID. It was, one of the strands were the highly contagious new variant COVID that's like, it wasn't like that. It was like this strand. No one says that the Houthis, they say the Iranian the proxy of Iran, Houthi, like something like that. They don't just say Houthi. So if we toughen up on Iran and we toughen up on these countries and we take them out, I'm not saying it doesn't need to be militarily because it needs to be the sanctions and whatever we're doing and people doing business, talking to my business owner communities, make sure you know who you're doing business with because Iran is not just funded by their oil, not just funded by, but there's a lot of business that you're flowing to Iran. I know somebody, I was talking to a business owner the other day. He gets reached out by Hezbollah. He's a drone salesperson. He gets reached out by Hezbollah. He gets reached out by Iran through multiple different avenues. And you have to hire a firm to vet who's actually buying from him. So for business owners around the world, you can get involved and do your part. Do not fund these organizations that will eventually do research. And the Lubin family, who came on the podcast, who lost their daughter was stabbed death by the Jaffa Gate, they did their research. Do your research on who you're doing business with. Find out who's actually backing and find out who backs your values. So, Sarit, I really want to thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy we did this in person. It's so much better than any Zoom video could ever be. But I really appreciate you taking the time. And thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.